a logical composition of research ideas. So I think in this entire course, you may come to know many things. I thought that, so along with those all things, it is very important to organize a thesis, because ultimately the research will be final when you prepare a thesis. For any research students, that is a dream, that how my thesis will come out. So that is there in mind, but bringing it into the reality is a very big task. That is what the entire process of research. So I thought that, so if I speak on this topic, that will be more relevant for everybody, because everybody talks about a specific segment of research. So am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes. The is PPT is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I thought that if it will be more beneficial for all the people, those who are carrying out the doctoral research, so that's why I have taken this topic, and now I am ready to present my views. So as we all know, so many of teachers might have explained about the meaning of research. As usual, uh, everybody says that what exactly the meaning of research, they have their own perspective. So here there is I have come through a definition where the research is a systematic process of investigating a specific topic, a, a problem, or a question. So it says that research always starts with the questions. If there is no questions, there is no need of research. If there is no problem, there is no need of research. If research is starting, so that will always start with a question. So generate new knowledge. In order to answer that question, we are involved to generate in a new knowledge, validate the existing theories, or develop a new solutions. It involves gathering, analyzing, and interpreting information using scientific method. That is what we know. So this is what research. And after understanding the research, now it is my topic, related to my topic, that what exactly that document, the thesis. A thesis is a structured academic document that organizes research findings, arguments. So ultimately, you are going to have your own research findings and arguments and analyze in a logical, coherent, and systematic manner. It serves as a formal presentation of research work requiring careful planning, drafting, and revision to ensure clarity, accuracy, and scholarly integrity. So these points are very important. When it comes to research document, we have to make the document of that research, because when it comes to our Vedas period, at that time the slokas were chanted, and they were in the smriti means they were in our remembrance only. So after the generation, when the generations together we passed, then we have started the system of recording anything in a language or in a systematic document. So here now it is very, we have to, the human beings evolution has been taken in a big manner. So that's why, so here now we are having all facilities regarding the documentation of the any work thoughts. So that's why we prepare a thesis. For in order to prepare a thesis, there is no hard and fast rule, but the earlier researcher and teachers and the scholars who had come through a systematic way, so that is what we are following, and that is not came in a single day. That is the purification of all the thoughts of those people. So that's why here the first point I want to make it that the thesis should be have the clarity. There should not be any ambiguity, and there should be accuracy. So accuracy is very important because it's a scientific document, not any other thing of document. So it is a scientific document. That's why we need accuracy and scholarly integrity. Integrity of is very important. So when ethical point comes, so integrity is very important. So that's why these thing should be kept in our mind. We should keep in our mind that how this entire thesis we have to draft that thesis. So when it comes to important of preparing a thesis, the demonstration of expertise. So one person did research on something, and we want to know his expertise, because the expertise depends on their intelligent power. So intelligence power. So that's why through that thesis we can understand that demonstration of his expertise on that area and contribute to the knowledge. So that document will be another contribution to the existing knowledge, and it develops a critical thinking. It will help us to develop a critical thinking, and it improves the academic and professional growth, and lastly it enhances the writing and communication skill. So this is what the importance of writing in a thesis. So now it is the uh, major point. So here, so yes, this is the, when it comes to a thesis, I think you may observe that there are preliminary pages where the title page, which contains the title page that includes the thesis title, author's name, institution, department, all those things. I think you may, and name of that researcher, and the name of the supervisor. So those all things will be in the first page, and then next in after that there is a declaration that that candidate should do. That is the statement by the author declaring that this work is originally carried out. And after that, the another step is, that is the certification. That certification is done by the research supervisor. He will certify that work, that is the original work, like that, and the author will have their own acknowledgement. So they will recognize the contributions from individuals and the institution. So, and after that, so we should provide a abstract with regards to our thesis, because when somebody is searching for any knowledge, at that time he will take our thesis in hand, and he will look into he don't have to time to look into entire thesis. So he will just go through our abstract, and he will come to know that whether what I am searching, is it available in this thesis or not. He will come out. So that will make the task easy. And then give the table contents. So which in this thesis, how many tables that I have used, and after that the figures and tables that which I have used in this thesis, and there is a list of abbreviations, that the abbreviations which the short forms that we have used for give for that short form, give a long form in the preliminary pages. So this is all about the preliminary pages. And after that, the main body of thesis will come, that is the chapterization. The first chapter will come. So in first chapter, usually everybody starts with the introduction part, where the background of the study will be discussed. So here it is very important to know that define the broad subject area of research. In which subject you have chosen for research, define that broad subject area of research, and highlight the topic's significance in a social, economic, and academic context. So we may learn many things, but when we are starting to write the thesis, at that time exactly we don't know how to start that task. So for that task, I'm giving some here. I'm sharing my experience that how we can start exactly the introduction of giving a background for the study, or introduction of thesis. So where we have to think about the broad area which we have chosen. So I have a, for every slide I have an example. I have taken an example. With that example, I will try to explain you. So defining the broad subject area of research and highlight the topic significance in social context. So this is all about the social science research. So here, this topic, the particular topic is going to, how it is going to impact on the social phenomena, what is the economic implications of that topics, and what is the academic context. Because in academic context there is a big debate regarding any subject. So that's why you have to keep remember and explain the things in this manner. So after that, provide a relevant statistics or real world examples. So in order to secure, in order to make your topic is more relevant, in order to say that your topic is more relevant, you have to take the help of some statistics and real world examples. By giving those statistical examples and real world examples, you can maximize the relevance of your topic, so that we can do. So after that, write about the explain the issues impact on individuals, community, and organization. So ultimately, the humanity subjects are all about the human beings. So here we will try to explain those things from the individual point of view, how it is going to make the impact on individuals, how it is going to make impact on communities, and how it is going to make impact on the organizations, whether the organizations are private or public. So this is all about our society. In our society, we are the individuals. We are in our society, there is a community, and in our society, there are some set of organizations. So in order to how my topic is going to impact on these three aspects, that is very important. Explain the points with respect to this in this backdrop, then you can only explain it in a better manner. Then next, justifies the need of research and its potential contributions. So what is the need of this research, whether this research is relevant or not? You have to mention that. If you are doing with the irrelevant research, that is not going to benefit for anything. So that's why go for the relevance. So justify the need of research and its a potential contributions. What after this research, what we are going to contribute to the society. So that we have to mention in the background of the study, and examine the theoretical and practical implications of policy and practice. So ultimately, so we have to examine the theoretical and the practical implications of that particular the particular research on the policy and the practice. Policy is done by the government, and practice, which is implemented by the bureaucrats, and which is practiced by the private people, you and me, all people. So that's why here it is very important that how it is going to what is the implication of my topic on the policy and practice. I came through that how to start the writing. So for starting writing, there is a method called deductive method of explanation, where deductive means we are starting with the broad subject area, and then after that we are coming to the little some specific point. After that again we are more specific. After that again we are more specific. So deductive, it is going to deduct the entire your topic. So you have to start from the big broader sense, and you have to reach the particular point. That is what the method we can use for writing any background of the study. So here there is an example. I have taken one example. So here the example is social accountability and skill-based education for transgender individuals. So this is what my topic. So I have taken this example for the sake of example here for the presentation. So how we can start the writing regarding this topic. So education is a fundamental right, yet transgender individuals face significant barriers to accessing and benefiting from the educational opportunities. So we are talking about the transgender education. So we have to start from the education. Education is a fundamental right, like that. So broader manner. So after that, in many scientists, a lack of inclusive policies and social acceptance has resulted in a limited access to the quality education and employment opportunities for transgender individuals. So we are coming to specific points. As a result, many struggle with the economic insecurity and social exclusion. So this is what the example that we can use. So how we can start with the broader concept and reach to the specific point. So after this, after writing the background for or the introduction for that study, so this is all about the first chapter. In first chapter, these all points comes, and in second segment of the first chapter, that is the statement of problem or research question or research issues. Though these all terms look differently, but ultimately the core of these the statements are same, one and the same. So that's why here the statement of problem is very important. We may face many problems in our society. As a layman point of view, we are explaining that problem, but when it comes to thesis, we have to explain that problem in a particular manner, the precise manner, scientific manner. So that's why briefly describe the broader issue related to your research topic. and highlight the significance of problem in real world context. So you have to highlight while writing the statement of the problem, while you are making the statement of that problem. So at that time, you have to highlight the significance of that topic in real world context and provide a relevant statistics, examples, or data to support the existence of the problem. So in order to say that your topic is more relevant, so that's why you are using you are taking the help of statistics, you are taking some examples, popular examples, and data support for your problem. So through this method, you can clearly write your statement and clearly state what issue your study will address. So there should be clarity, there should not be any ambiguity. So explain how this problem affects individuals, community, and institution. As I have said, when it comes to social science research or any research, this is all about the human beings. We are the center of everything. So that's why we have to say that how this research problem is affecting the individual's life, the community's life, and the institution's life. So we have to explain in this three dimension, then only we can come out with the best statement of problem and ensure the problem is researchable and aligns with your study objectives. So we have to ensure whether my research problem is researchable or not. Sometimes what happens, being an individual researcher or a research scholar, we are not able to explain that research. So that's why we have to ensure that yes, this can be researchable by me, and whether it aligns with our objectives or not. So objective points comes later, but we have to keep remember that whether my research questions are aligning with my objectives or not, that we have to check. So here I have taken an example, that is the transgender education example. So broader issue is transgender individuals face discrimination and limited access to skill-based education despite a global inclusivity efforts. So as we all know, everybody is talking about the male, everybody is talking about female, older people, younger people, educated, uneducated. But when it comes to transgender, that gender is highly ignored. So nowadays the debate is happening, and the Supreme Court also has given, they have recognized that gender. So that's why in that context, this is the unreached area or the dark area. So where we can have some lights. So that's why the broader issue is like this, that despite of global inclusivity efforts, so that transgender education with respect to transgender discrimination is high. So that is what our feeling. This is the broad issue. And what exactly the specific problem with respect to this? So lack of accountability in education and employment systems reduces the effectiveness of skill development programs, limiting economic empowerment. If we want to do the economic empowerment of any individual, so we have to go through with the education skill development program. So here the problem is lack of accountability in education and employment system, which will reduce the effectiveness of skill development. So skill development is very important. As we all know, being a student of economics, Adam Smith also highlighted that by talking about the division of labor. So skill development is very important. So this is the making your broader issue into a specific problem. After this, so this is the another segment, the second segment of the first introduction unit. And the next in that first introduction unit, another important aspect comes, that is the research objective. Research objectives are the core of any research. So these objectives are going to explain what exactly you are doing, where, towards which destination you are moving. So that all things are well explained in your objectives. So research objectives defines what your study aims to achieve. They should be clearer, specific, measurable, and achievable. So this is very important. The research objectives should be clear and that should be specific. So we cannot make vague or a general type of statements regarding the objectives. We should be very specific. So there should be clear research objective, there should be specific research objective, and that research objective should be measurable. If it is not measurable, then there is no there is no use of including that objective. So we have to check through how we can come to know that whether it is measurable or not with our past knowledge or with our review of literature. So that's why whether it is measurable or not, measuring in terms of whether it is a qualitatively measurable or quantitatively measurable, that we have to check, and achievable. Finally, we have to achieve the objective. So that is what the point. So within the scope of your research. So there is a scope for our research. That is another segment that later on I will explain you. So this is what the scope of your research. And then state the broad aim of the research. So first we have to state the broad aim of any research, and then reflect the overall purpose of the study in that brief. And the our objective should include the when we are exploring something, that time we have to use identify and analyzing the key aspects of research problem. So in order to, with respect to the research problem, always research starts with a problem, and now it is reaching to the objective point. So in order to identify and analyze the key aspect of the research problem and examine, when it comes to examine, investigate the factors and causes and relationships, such kinds of things should be done. And evaluate, when it comes to evaluation, at that time we have to use the technique of assess the effectiveness of any system or program or any policy. So that is the kind of objective evaluative objective from the evaluation point of view. And the recommendation for any thesis you may take, there are some objectives based on their context of research. They have some list of objectives, but finally there is a common objective in every research, that is the recommendations with respect to the research what they have done. So that's why here it is very important to know that what are the recommendations which we are going to give to the society or the government. So we have to make some recommendation, so that will ease the life of the human being. So that's why the recommendation objective should be there. So provide a solutions, improvements, and policy suggestions, and use action verbs such as analyze, identify, evaluate, access, explore, determine. Such things of action verb should be used while preparing any objective sentence. So instead of vague terms like understand, study, these vague terms should not be included, because they are not clear. Study means which type of study, that we have to specify. So that's why instead of going with the vague words, go for the action verbs like analyze, identify, evaluate, access, assess, explore, determine, such things. So that's why it is very important. And make sure objectives are achievable within the given time frame and resource. So that we have to, being as a, when we are conducting research for doctoral degree, at that time we have to think that it is a one type of the research which is not that much time given by the any institution. There is a time frame for that research, and there is a resource constraint. So that's why, keeping in this mind the time frame and resource, we have to frame our objectives. Here there is an example with respect to that same issue, that is to identify the barriers faced by the transgender individuals in assessing accessing skill-based education program. So this type of objective we can frame. Then next, to assess the role of social accountability frameworks in improving educational access and quality for transgender individuals. Like these types of objectives we can frame. After this, the next slide. Yes, next slide talks about hypothesis. So objective, as I have said, objective is very important. In order to achieve that objective, the rehearsal what we are doing, in order to achieve, when we achieve that objectives, when we reach the that objectives, then only our research is going to be full and final. So that's why here we have to understand the importance of objectives. But when I was a student at that time, so I thought that for any research, objective is necessary, issue is necessary, and objective is necessary. What is the need of this hypothesis testing or hypothesis? So actually, this is the hypothesis testing will give you a scientific base for any research. So how that we will try to understand. So here, hypothesis is a statement that predicts a the relationship between variables in your research. It should be clear, testable, based on the existing knowledge or the theories. So the hypothesis will give you a context. If you are reading any thesis, that you want to know that you are satisfied with the objective, you are satisfied with the analysis, you are satisfied with the findings, but you want to know, in order to achieve such kinds of findings, in which context they have organized this research, that we have to know. So in order to know the context of that research, so that's why we need the hypothesis. So hypothesis is generally said that it is a tentative statement. It is a pre-testable testing stage statement. So we have not tested anything. So that is the statement that we are making. It is a tentative statements which is subject to research, which is subject to test. After testing, we will come to know that whether this hypothesis is right or wrong. With that hypothesis, we will understand the context of that particular research. So there are many hypotheses. We can use many hypotheses for our research. So here, when it comes to hypothesis, I think there are two types of variable which we can identify in any statement. That one is independent variable and another one is dependent variable. So what is independent variable? That we all know, that the factor you manipulate or study, that is what the independent variable. And the next one is the dependent variable, the outcome affected by the independent variable. So the independent variable is going to make some impact on your dependent variable. Your dependent variable is influenced by your independent variable. So that's why. So here in our example, the social accountability mechanism is a independent variable, and when it comes to the same example, the dependent variable is access to skill based education for transgender individuals. So this is what we have to clearly distinguish between dependent variable and independent variable. Then when it comes to hypothesis testing, so there is a there comes a stage where we have to create that statement into null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. So null hypothesis means, as it is saying, that null will, so it states that there is no significant relationship between the said variable, the dependent variable and independent variable. When it comes to alternative hypothesis, we have to frame that. So it says that there is a significant relationship. So the entire testing is all about whether we are able to disprove the null hypothesis, or we are not able to disprove the null hypothesis. That is what the business. So what is the scientific method? So when I asked one of our teacher that why these null hypothesis, they are creating null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis for the same statement, they said that, so what is the scientific way of identifying anything? So here we are all people. So the participants are there, and I'm the presenter here. So my name is Bendre. So if anybody asks to anybody that who is Bendre, then you will directly point out towards me that he is the Bendre. But actually, that is not a scientific way of identification. The scientific way of identification is that by saying that here there are 30 people are there. Among these 30 peoples, the 29 peoples are not Bendre. So that's why the remaining, that person who is presenting, is Bendre. So by giving these kinds of statement, you are precising you are precising your research work. So this is the way of scientific. So when you give any command to computer, that will identify which is for which knowledge you are searched. So that is not going to identify first. That will identify which is not relevant. So which is not, they will identify the not relevant thing, and it will then the last thing which remains with it, that will show it as that will show that this is the thing that you are searching for it. So that's why the hypothesis is like that. They will create the null hypothesis. So our entire business is to nullify that null hypothesis. So there is no significant relationship between those variables. There is no relation. So if there is a significant relationship, is there. So which type of significant relationship is there, whether it is positive or negative? So we have to mention the degree, and that I think that will come under different lecture, where the statistics test will be used in order to prove or disprove the null hypothesis. So after that, here in this section, you have to mention the lists of hypotheses, and then you have to, so here you should not test, give any table for testing your hypothesis. You should test your hypothesis when the context comes in the analysis part. But here you have to mention that these are my hypothesis. So this is my alternative hypothesis and this is my null. Only mention in first chapter, we have to mention the statements. So we have to test those hypotheses and we have to draw some inferences based on that. We have to do that in particular context, where the context comes, that I will explain you later. But here you have to mention what are my hypotheses. So based on your study, based on the context of the study, you have to frame the hypothesis. Make sure your hypothesis can be tested using data and research methods, and avoid vague and subjective statement. In hypothesis, there should not be any vague statement and there should not be any subjective statement. Statement should be objective, that should be measurable. So that thing we have to keep in our mind. So here there is an example. So there is a statement with respect to the third gender education. Social accountability mechanisms have no significant impact on the accessibility and effectiveness of skill-based education program for the transgender individuals. This is the statement, the hypothesis statement. So here, what are the dependent variables? So social accountability mechanism is an independent variable, and it is going to make impact on what the dependent variable is, the accessibility and effectiveness of skill-based education program. So these are the variables that we can identify. So, and we are establishing relationship between these variables, and we are testing that hypothesis with the data and the statistic table that will tell us that whether there is a significant relationship or not. So this is the statement. Now, the alternative hypothesis for the same statement is social accountability mechanism significantly improves the accessibility. Means there is a relationship between these two dependent and independent variable. So this is what all about the hypothesis. So hypothesis is very important. So in first chapter, so you have to state the hypothesis and you have to test those hypotheses and draw the interpretations and inferences and write the results, write the explanatory results. So in that the context where it is necessary. So this is the hypothesis section. After understanding the hypothesis section, then the another segment of the first chapter, that is the scope and limitation, stating the scope and limitations of the study. So here it is very important because it is a scientific document and it is all about the scientific research. So at that time we have to state the scope of our research. Scope, stating the scope of research means to which extent our research is there. So it is nothing but, so the border of our research. After that scope, I have not doing anything. So if any questions arise beyond your scope, then it is not, you are not answerable for that. So that's why stating, finishing around ourselves is very important in research, because the area is very vast. There are many dimensions. There are many dimensions for any issue. That's why we have to limit ourselves. So scope means how extent your research is going, and limit means that is the point. After that point, you are not going to, your research is not looking into that. So that's why scope and limitation section defines boundaries of your research, specifying what it covers and what it does not. And it helps set realistic expectations and acknowledges potential constraints. So here we are acknowledging that potential, what are the potential constraints. So it is not any back step you are taking in your research. We have to clearly state that what is my scope, so that will make your research more specific. So if you think that if I mention my scope and limitation for study, that is the back step for me, no, that is not right. So we have to, being as a researcher, we have to mention that, so this is what my scope, because when the other person will read your thesis and he will look into your limitations, then he will get idea to, from that point you have to start, I can start my research. He can get the idea from that. So that's why it's very important. And you also did like that only. You have also gone through the review of literature where you know the limitation of other thesis. That's why you are preparing this thesis. So that's why the limitation, the mentioning the limitation is very important. So scope of the study. subject area, you have to, how we can write the scope of study, where we have to mention the subject area, define the main focus of the research, which area my research is focusing, and the geographical scope. If it is a primary database study, then you have to mention the geographical scope, which is limited to only this district or this state or this the tribal community or like that. So, and the population and sample size. So identify the participants. So in your sample, what is the population and which population you have not taken, which population you have taken. So that is the limit that I have only observed these this population of the section of the community. And again, same that, so sample, so the sample which we have considered for our research and which I have not considered, that is the limitation of your thesis. Identifying the participant. Here in our case, this is the transgender relating study that we have taken. So transgender individuals are my samples, educators are, and the policymakers. These are all stakeholders with respect to the transgender education, improvement of education. So that's why, so I am going to meet these people only, and beyond that, so I have not met anybody. So that is what the limit that you have doing your research. And after that, time frame is also a limit, because in our small life span of time, we can study only some period. So we can restrict our study with respect to period. So we cannot do research for 100 years, 200 years, or we can take the data, but there is a time constraint for us. We have to do research in a specific time period. So that's why mentioning time is also a limit for your research. And research methods, the methodology that you have used, that you have to mention, because the methodology which you have not used, that is the potential area for the another researcher. So that is what your limit. So here we have to mention the methodological aspects from the limit of the thesis point of view, not a methodological point of view, because methodology itself, it is a subject worth to it is a subject worth to create a chapter. So that will come later, I will explain. So this is all about the limited scope of your thesis and limiting. That is what I have said, the limitations, that challenges or constraints regarding your thesis. So you have to mention, that is what the limitations that I have given here. The sample size, if the study has small sample size, mentioned how it might affect the generalizability of the data, and data collection constraint, any issues with the accessing participants, data reliability and availability, time and resource limitations, constraints due to the budget, time, or logistics, potential biases, acknowledge any biases in data collection, sampling, or methodology. That is also a limit. And the external factors, mention factors beyond your control. Being as an individual researcher, how much we can control. So those things which are not under our control, mention those things. That will be a limitation for our research. And the example for mentioning research, that the study includes interview with the transgender individuals, educators, and policymakers to assess the effectiveness of accountability mechanisms. The research relies on a self-reported data, which may introduce response bias. Such things with respect to the example I have taken, transgender example. So with respect to that, so self-reported data which may introduce response bias. So such kinds of things you may mention. So this is all about the scope and limitation of the study. So this is also part of your first introduction chapter. So then next comes the organization of the study. So we are talking about the organization of thesis, but in first chapter, in the last stage of first chapter, we have to mention how my study is organized. That will help the reader to understand. So how he has designed his entire chapter. So that is what chapter scheme. So organization of study, also called structure of the thesis, provides an overview of how the thesis is structured. It briefly describes each chapter to help reader understanding the logical flow of the research. So this is the example that I have given. So not like that, because based on your study, you may have many more number of chapters. So always there are 2 chapters are common in three, 4 chapters are common. Some the introduction chapter, that is very much important for any research thesis, and the review of literature. Some people have practiced that they will include the review of literature in the first chapter. So it is better to have the separate chapter on review of literature, because it is a very core. Actually, this is the research guide for anybody. So by review of literature, you can understand what exactly happening in that particular area. So review of literature is a very important part. And methodology, some people include, they will merge methodology concept into the first chapter only. So some people will give more importance to the methodology part, that I will explain later. So, and after that, based on the so after the next chapters will be based on your objectives, how we can how the chapter scheme. So the introduction chapter, review of literature chapter, and research methodology chapters are common. And another chapter, that is the profile of the study area. Those who are working on the primary data, they may have another chapter on the profile of the study area, or they may merge that concept into the first chapter only, or methodology chapter. Sorry, you may merge that concept into methodology chapter. But here, the point here is that these are common for all researcher. So we have to write about these chapters, and after that, the original chapters which related to your thesis, that is based on your research objective. Because the entire rehearsal that you are doing, scientific investigation that you are doing, because in order to satisfy the objective. So that's why those chapters title will be named as named on the objective basis. So that I will later on, there is another slide on that. Later on, I will show that also. So this is, and last, the common chapter for all, that is the findings, recommendations, and conclusion. This is the common chapter for all. So everybody should give the list of the findings and the recommendations which the researcher is recommending society or the government, and the conclusion, what conclusion they came. They started with the problem, which conclusion they have reached, that we have to mention it one single chapter. So that is the last chapter for any research. So in this manner, you can frame your chapter scheme. That is what your entire thesis. After this, yes, in this presentation, I have taken review of literature as a separate chapter. So because, as I have said, the review of literature is having more importance in study, because through that review of literature, you can learn many things. What exactly research is going on, what exactly the debate is going on. You think that this is the very important problem, but that problem is already addressed by somebody else. So what is the use of conducting research on it? So such things will be come to know by any researcher through this review of literature. So that's why you can frame review of literature as a second chapter, where the overview of previous studies, also known as a literature review, summarizes existing research related to your topic. It identifies the gaps, compare findings, and establishes a foundation for your study. So this is all about the review of literature, where you need to find the gap, because your research is a value additions to the existing literature. So that's why you have to show the gap. So if there is no gap, there is no scope for research. So identifying gap is very important. So that is the very important point. Then next, comparing the findings. Comparing the findings is very important, because based on that findings, you will come to know that what exactly happening in that particular area, and establish the foundation for your study. That will help you to establish a concrete foundation for your study. That is what we can understand from review of literature. And briefly introduce the purpose of the review of literature while writing about the review of literature. So briefly introduce the purpose of literature review, explain how it helps in understanding the research problem. So you have to again connect your review of literature with the research problem, because your research started from problem only. So then review major research paper, that we know how to review that. So through the research paper, through the research books, through the thesis reports, so we can do the review of literature and summarize their key findings, methodologies, and conclusions. So here, one of our teachers said that how we can find exactly the research gap. When we go through the review of literature, at that time we feel that everything is already addressed by somebody else. What I can do the new thing, because the thesis, the degree will be awarded for the unique work. So unique work means there should not be overlap. So what I am doing, so if how I can create the research gap, for that the answer is that we may go with the methodological point of view. So it happens in secondary data, because in secondary data, so based on that same data, many people have done their work. So at that time, what we can do, so we can go through the methodological point of view, where the methodological tools that they have not used. So by using the new methodological tools, we can create some research gaps. So that is what the thing. And with respect to findings and with respect to the research aspects, we can have the create the research gap, so finding the research gap. And next one is highlight common themes and trends in previous studies. So then in our review of literature chapter, we have to highlight the common themes that have been already addressed, and what are the trends that they have, what is the trend is going on the particular topic, that we have to mention. And next discussion about the limitations in previous studies. Through that review of literature, we come to know that what are the limitations, what are the unreached areas, what are the dimensions which have not given more focus, so that we can discuss. So that is the identifying the limitations of previous studies, and identify the unexplored areas or aspects that require further investigation. So by identifying the unexplored areas, so we can know that what we can further investigation carry out on that, and show how your study will address these gaps. So that is all about the review of literature. So mention these all things, and the review of literature chapter will be prepared by you. And here there is an example regarding how we can write the review of literature. So the education barriers for transgender individuals, this is the issue. So research by Smith and Jones 2020 highlights that transgender individuals face discrimination in accessing formal education, limiting their career prospectus. So this is what the review of literature, what we can understand. So another example that I have given here is skill-based education as a solution. A study by Patel 2021 found that vocational training program improves employment rates among marginalized communities, but the impact on transgender individuals remain unexplored. So this is what the review of literature that we can do. So here, while doing review of literature with respect to any paper, at that time we have to look into the four aspects. That the first is in what context they have written this paper. The second one is in order to satisfy which objectives they have framed which objectives. The first one is the context of the research. The second one is the objectives of the research. Third one is the methodology which they have used for that research, and finally which result they have reached. So what are the findings they have found. So these are the four aspects which we can consider for any review of literature time. So at that time, we have to consider these four aspects. The first one is in which context they have carried out this research, and what is the objective they have, in order to satisfy which objective they have done this research, and the methodology which they have used, and finally, what are the findings they have come out with that research. That we have, by writing these all things, we will write the review of that paper or the book that we can do. So this is all about the review of literature. The next slides is all about the theoretical framework or conceptual framework. This is another point where all the aspects which are already discussed by many scholars with the theories. So that's why giving any theoretical framework for any research is very important. We have to go through the original text which are available in our particular discipline. We have to go through that original text, and we have to frame some theoretical framework. So look for whether any theory applies to my research, that we have to know. So theoretical framework explains the theories and models that support your research. It provides a foundation for understanding your study by connecting it to existing knowledge, that we can come to know. Define the purpose of the theoretical framework, explain how it supports your research problems and objectives, and select one or more theories that related to your study. Explain how these theories have been used in previous research. Justify why these theories are relevant to your study. describe how these concepts apply to your research, show the relationship between the theories and your research variables. So present the diagram or flow chart regarding the theoretical framework. So this is all about the theoretical framework. If you are not come with any theoretical background for your research, so at that time, through the knowledge which you have taken from review of literature, from that knowledge you can draw some concepts from that knowledge, and based on that concept you can draw some variables, and you can connect some you can establish some relationship between those variables. Then it will come to a flow chart that will be known as a conceptual framework. If it is any theory is applicable for your research, go with that theory. If there's no theory, go with your own model. That is what the conceptual framework you can do. So here in our example, so conceptual model, so that is independent variable, social accountability mechanisms. That is what the independent variable. The mediating variable is accessibility and quality of skill-based education, and the third one is dependent variable is socio-economic inclusion of transgender individuals. So by reading all those papers, books, and the reports, you will come out some idea that if you if you organize that idea into a particular manner, then it will become some conceptual framework. So go with the conceptual framework. Here there is an example of conceptual framework which I have used for my thesis, where my topic was of fiscal management, where the fiscal management is all about the government receipts and expenditure. For that, I have used these kinds of the variables, and I have tried to with the help of the review of literature, I have tried to establish some relations in this concept that I have tried. So this is, you can take this as a, you can look into this, that how we can do this. I'm not going to explain these all things. This is for only example purpose. So after that, here you have to mention the source. So when it comes to source, so if it is the theory which you have to notice that theory in any book, so you have to mention the original source of that book. Otherwise, if you have framed any conceptual framework, go for author's visualization. Based on your visualization only, you have framed this one. So that's why go for the visualization, like this kinds of you have to, the meaning is you have to mention the source of your conceptual framework, whether it is created by you yourself or it is adopted by somewhere from somewhere, that you have to mention. After the review of literature and the conceptual framework, the another segment of this review of literature chapter is the research gap in the thesis, because research gap is the only section where it will say that what is the new knowledge that you are adding to the your existing literature. Then you can come to know this. So research gap identification section highlights areas where existing studies are limited, incomplete, or missing. It justifies the need for your research and explain how your study will fill the gap. So your entire the rehearsal or business that you are doing, because in order to fill that research gap, so the research gap is very important. So how we can fill the research gap? So how we can we can write about the research gap section, summarize the key findings from the previous study. By summarizing the key findings of the previous study, we can say that this paper talks about this research talk about this. So these are the summary of this entire themes that we can say. Then identify common themes, methodologies, and conclusions. So by identifying the common themes, these people are talking about the common this theme and the methods, such kinds of same methodologies adopted by these peoples, and the conclude, what is the conclusion that you can say, and look for area that have been unexplored or overlooked. That is what I am saying. What is research gap? That is which is left by somebody else. That is what every ending point is a starting point for some other things. So that's why. So the area which is uncovered, unexplored, or overlooked by somebody else, that you have to complete it. And identify methodological weaknesses such as a small sample size or a lack of diverse perspective. So like that, in this manner, you can identify some weaknesses. Note the contradictions or inconsistencies in existing findings, that you can also take into consideration. Identifying population or group that have been excluded from any research, that will be very potential area for your new research. highlight the absence of interdisciplinary approaches, that you have to highlight the absence of any interdisciplinary researchers, because in the modern days the research studies are carried out in a multidisciplinary manner, where the interdisciplinary the question of interdisciplinary arises. So that's why look into this one. And next, explain how your study fills the gap. Right, clearly write that, clearly state how your research addresses the missing or unexplored areas that you have to mention, and explain why this contribution is important for the academia, policy and practice. So you have to write in the last segment of that particular point. At that time you have to explain that why this contribution is important for academia, policy and practice. For 3 dimensions you have to explain. That is what the best that will become a best research gap regarding research gap. Here there is an example that I have used. That example research gap identification, that is with respect to the social accountability and skill based education for the transgender individuals. So limited research on social accountability in skill based education for transgender individuals. Previous studies have examined social accountability in governance and education, but there is little research on how it impacts vocational training and skill development for transgender individuals. So this is what the research gap you may mention in your research with respect to this particular example. So after understanding the research gap in our thesis, then now it is come to the major part. That is another major part of any thesis, that is the methodology. When your thesis goes into examination point of view, at that time the examiners will give more focus on methodology, because in the methodology section only they will come to know that how you did the new thing. So that is very important. So that's why here the methodology of any research. So the methodology research design. So the methodology is also known as a research design. The research design section explains the overall structure and strategy your study. So overall, what is the strategy of your study, that will explained by the methodology section. It describes how data will be collected, analyzed, interpreted to answer the research question. Again, here we have to connect this one with the research question. So here, how we can write the methodology, which approach that I have used for this research, whether it is a qualitative or quantitative or hybrid method. So that we have to clearly mention. So in the case of secondary data, there is only some people use a quantitative method, some people use qualitative method. When it comes to primary data, some people use only quantitative method, some people use a qualitative method. It is well accepted that using both methods, that is mixed method, is very good for any research. Then next, type. So when it comes to type, though, so there are 2 types of explanation that we can go: descriptive explanation, the descriptive type of research, or exploratory type of research that we can do. More than that, there are many types, but these are very popular types which are adopted for any thesis. And when it comes to, we have to state about the population. If it is a primary data-based study, at that time we have to clearly mention what is my population, and out of that population, how much sample I have taken. Whether my research is purely on full population, if it is possible, you can do. In most cases, there is no possibility because population is huge. So from that population, we are taking some samples. So which sample size I have taken in our case? So what are the samples in our example that we are giving here? That is, transgender individuals are the samples, educators are the samples, or respondents for my research, and policymakers are the respondents for my research. And next, the purposive and snowball and stratified. These are the sample methods that we know. And next, the data collection. When it comes to data collection, so interview, so there is a questionnaire is there, interview schedule is there. So through the interview, survey, focus group discussion, policy reviews, we can collect the data. And next one is analysis, the thematic analysis we can do when it comes to qualitative research. When it comes to quantitative data, so at that time we can go for the statistical test. So in primary data, interviews with the transgender individuals, educators, policymakers, and focus group discussions with the NGOs, survey on a vocational education experience, such kinds of things we may observe. When it comes to secondary data, so government reports, academic research, and case studies. So tools that we can mention here, we should mention the tools which we have used. So now I think you may come to know about the Kobo tool, which is very famous tool. So like that, there is a Google form is there. There are many fancy tools which are available in research area, so that we can mention which tool that I have incorporated for my research. So next, the ethical consideration. So we have to mention about the ethical consideration. These kinds of ethical considerations are very important for when the anthropological, sociological research, because some sections of the society, some some issues are not explored in that manner. So that's why here the ethical consideration comes. We have to take the consent from that sample, the respondent. We have to maintain the confidentiality of that data, and the voluntary participations. How many people took that? We have to mention in methodological section. After this, after mentioning the methodology, the objectives of the study, how we can, after mentioning the methodology, so there is the part comes where the original research, these sections, the introduction, review of literature, methodology, and the profile of the study area, such kinds of things are quite common for all research. But after that, the chapters, after that with the chapters which are coming, they are very important, because here I have taken my own thesis example, that here how we can the form the chapters, how we can make the chapterization in our research. That point comes at that time. What we have to do, when we are finalizing our objective, at that time only we are finalizing our chapters, because based on your objective only your chapters will be there. So here, to analyze the trends and patterns of public revenue by central government and by different states, this was my first objective with respect to the revenue, because I have done my PhD in public finance. So that's why here the first thing I have taken, that is public revenue. So the public revenue itself become the first chapter, the core chapter, the core part of my thesis. That is the core, the chapter I have framed, that is trends and patterns of public revenue. So like this manner, you can give the title of your chapter. So that is the chapter which is based on the first objective. And the second objective is about the expenditure, public expenditure. So for that, I have given my fourth chapter, that is trends and patterns of public spending. And next, the third chapter is all about the debt, public debt. So that's why I have titled the fifth chapter as trends and patterns of deficit financing and fiscal management. Again, my fourth objective is also related to my fifth chapter. So that's why the same topic is I have given here. And last, the common chapter for every research, that is summary, conclusion, and policy suggestions. So this is very important. So we have to do in this manner. So when it comes to how to prepare the chapter, my thesis, the question comes in your mind. At that time, go to your objectives. You have to create the title of chapter based on your objective, because the entire research is all about to satisfy the research objective. That is what I have mentioned, that research objectives are the core part of any research. So while mentioning any objectives, you have to take into consideration that you are responsible for every word which is used by you in your objective, because you are responsible for every word that you used in your objective. So that's why be careful while using the words. You use when you are at the starting time of research, you may use the very fancy words, but after final the entire research, you are not able to satisfy that word. So that is not going to be good research. So that's why be specific. So that is what the very important thing, the objective part. Based on that objective, you are going to create the chapters. So after this, the segment. So after this, the another segment is that the presentation of collected data, I think this section, this segment is explained by some other teachers, but for the flow, for the logical, the connectivity, I am using that. So here there is a how to we can present the data. The presentation of collected data section systematically organizes and displays research findings, making it easy for reader to understand the trends, patterns, and key insights. It typically includes tables, charts, graphs, and narratives summarizing data. So we have collected the data, and there is a data with us. So we have to make presentation of that data. Presentation of data is very important because you have collected good data, but you have not presented in a right manner. No, that is not, that is going to be a pitfall for you. So that's why. So you have to take consideration of the such things, that which how I can present my data. So here there are some points that I have mentioned here. Present data logically and sequentially, linking it to research objectives. So again, how we can present the data through our objectives, because the objectives are the title of the chapter for my thesis. So that's why the tables, which are very popularly used in every thesis, that is used for presenting numerical data and clearly. So cross tabulation method, all those things, and graphs and charts wherever it is necessary. Please use the bar graphs, histograms, pie charts, line graphs, and visual representation will be more helpful for them. And descriptive statistics, that is what mean, percentage, frequency, standard deviation. Through that descriptive, you can describe the data. So you can describe the data through that description. You can describe the data. You can understand what exactly happening in that particular area. And after that, you can use the inferential statistics, that is what the popularly known as regression, correlation. The descriptive of statistics will give only description of data. So you can describe the data, you can clearly describe the data in that section. But by using the inferential statistical tools, you can come to some, you can draw some inferences from your table. So that is what the beauty of the regression and the correlation and hypothesis testing. So in inferential statistics, you will come to finally you will come to you will able to draw some inferences with respect to your data. So then next, the narrative summary. So please narrate the summary explaining key themes for interviews of or focus group. When it comes to primary data, quote from the participant. If any special thing that is quoted by any participant, please include it, and explain key trends and patterns which you have observed in that data, and relate findings to research objective and hypothesis. Here it is very important to your data findings should be correlate with your objective and hypothesis, because this is what the core section. So if your findings are not correlating with the objective, then something is wrong. So that's why please be careful about these things, and use clear tables and the title of the table, labels for the tables, and figures, graphs, you have to use clearly, because that I will show you an example that I have in next slides. So ensure data is correctly formatted and source. So for every piece of data, you have to mention the source. Why? Because it's a scientific work. So here everything should be, you have to cite the other thing. Otherwise, it will be considered as a plagiarism. So that's why, in order to avoid the plagiarism, so that's why you have to mention the source of the data. That means you are giving credit to that original source. Then next, after this, the data analysis method that we have used, that we may use. So that I think this section I will not explain, because it is already addressed by some teachers. So that's why the analysis method is very important. That famous method, qualitative data analysis, quantitative. In qualitative analysis, the thematic analysis we are doing, content analysis we are doing, narrative style of analysis that we can do in qualitative research. When it comes to quantitative research, yes, descriptive statistics, mean, median, standard deviation, frequency distribution, such things, and inferential statistics where hypothesis testing, correlation, regression analysis can be done. Chi-square test and the t-test, ANOVA, such things, such kinds of things can test, we can use for our research while doing the quantitative data analysis. So after this, here the example which I have used in my thesis, where how we can do the analysis. So my research is all related to the public finance, where the fiscal management includes all the combined finance. Combined finance means the central government finance and state government finance. After that, I have taken central finance as a separate, and after that, I have taken the finance of all state, that is a separate, and I have taken the individual state. In my study, I have done the 14 major states fiscal management study. So that's why I have taken the 4 steps of research analysis you can do. And for that 4 steps, there is a components, different components of study I have done, dimension of study, that is as a I have compared my data with respect to as a proportion to GDP, as in per capita terms. I have explained my data as proportion to total expenditure. So by these kinds of the new dimension, you can have the analysis. So after that, in my research, I have constructed one constructed index for every chapter. So I wanted to make the states. I wanted to rank the states. So that's why I have the index construction method will be easy, because we can, through that index, we can rank the states. So this is what I have done for my thesis. This is the example that I'm showing you. So this is indicative in nature. And next, the table. So this is what the table that I have used in my research. Here you have to look into the, we have to clearly, first we have to give the table number, because the numbering is very important, because so many tables will be there in our research. So that's why proper number should be given for that table, and there should be clear title for that table. You have to give clear title. Here I have given a clear title: combined government composition of aggregate expenditure as percentage to GDP, as percentage to total expenditure, and in per capita terms. So we have to mention, and during which time period, from 1990 to 2020. So this is the 30-year period of time research. So I have mentioned the time period also with respect to the data. And in public finance, we have to take the new constant data. I have taken this constant data of 2011 and 12. So this is the body of the data. So here, how we can make the analysis? So we can see the trend. Here I have taken five years the data. So over the period of time, what is happening, all period. So this is overall stability. So here also, in per capita terms, how per capita in the revenue, here it is all about the expenditure, the how per capita expenditure by the combined government is increasing in India over the period of time, that we can say. So what was the condition at the 1990, and what is the condition at 2020, that we can write. So this is all about the analysis. And here, and in every table, we have to mention the source. Mentioning source is very important, because as I have said, it is a scientific document. So here, the source that I have mentioned, computed from the various issues of.
So what do you mean by PC, sir? PC aggregated expenditure.
Which ones?
Sir, in description,
yes,
the PC aggregated expenditure.
Yes.
PC means what, sir?
PC, per capita expenditures, per capita. So that I have not mentioned here. So sorry for that, but we have to mention that if any abbreviation, if I am using in this table, we have to mention separately, because the thesis is observed by anybody else. So they may come from any background to study your thesis. So that's why it is very important that we have to mention. Here I have written the GDP. What is the full form of GDP? Here I have mentioned the per capita. I have mentioned T. What is T? Total expenditure or the budget size. So that we have to mention. So this is very important. So this is for the sake of example. And after that, we can present the same data in these kinds of the the histograms. So with these histograms, we can understand. Here I have taken the five-year averages. What is exactly the trend is happening, and for figure, there should be figure number, there should be figure title, and we have to give some legends, and here we have to mention the source. So this is all about the histogram. And with respect to the
sir. So in RBI website, it is available, sir.
Yes, in RBI website, the raw data is available. From that raw data, I have computed. So I have processed that data, and by processing that data, I have done some Excel work, and I have compared that data with respect to, as I have said, the GDP per capita total. That is a big rehearsal, and this is the final result that is I am showing in front of you. So here we can see that how the deficit trend is there. So this is all about the trend analysis. So this is the example. And next, we can present our data So as I have said, I have constructed the revenue efficiency index, how we can rank the state. So this is a very interesting, and it will help the readers to easily understand the things. So we can present our data in like this chart. So this is all about the by using the QGIS. And after that, this is the another method which is very interesting, which I come to know from my supervisor who has given me many ideas. One of this is also one of the idea that here. So in how we can compare. So at the time of 2044 and 5, what happened? Good fiscal management category, and here also in 2019-20 good fiscal management category, how many state falls. So this is the one type of the table which we can use. Through this we can understand data very easily. So this is another example. So
Sir,
after
sir,
analyzing the data, yes.
the revenue index, how to whether you're taking as some parameters, sir?
Yes, yes, there is a big rehearsal behind that, but here there is a lack of time. We have to consider the index construction is very interesting. I think that will be addressed by our coordinator, sir, Dr. Hangodimut, sir. So that is very interesting. And when you will learn about the constructing any index, then you are able to rank anything with scientifically. So that is very interesting. So here I am not mentioned those all steps because that will again take the another session.
Yes, no. The sir is given to the population index. Therefore, I will ask you, sir. Our revenue index is going on. Okay.
Yes, yes, yes. So the next segment is that the findings, ultimately the results. That is the end point you are coming to your thesis. So as I have said, these all analysis chapter will be chapter. You have to prepare that chapter based on your objective and use some tables, figures to explain your data. So after that, the last point come, that is the explanation of findings in relation to the research questions. So here you have to answer those research questions which we have raised at the initial stage of your research. The explanation of finding in relation to research questions section connects research results directly to the study's objectives and questions. It interprets the significance of findings, showing how they confirm, challenge, or expand existing knowledge. So through these findings we can come to know this. And here how we can state our how we can write our findings. So clearly restate the primary and secondary research questions. So first we have to state our questions, then we have to provide a brief summary of the main findings, and question by question approach we can brief for that every question what we have come to, finally what we have come to know, that we have to mention. Explain how the data collected answers the research question, the collected data how it answers, and the use of the qualitative results, the quantitative results, that is what the statistics percentage regression values that we can use numerical findings, and where the qualitative aspects, where what insights we have got from the qualitative data, that is what provided in deeper understanding of that any research. Identify whether result confirm existing theories or suggests new perspective that for new research. Then explain if findings support or challenge the assumptions of the theory that use the theory which you have taken for your research, whether that is going to is it not incoherent with that theory or not, that you have to check. Discuss how the results impacts, that is what the dimensions are policy. Here we have taken that popular example in that education sector. So education, how it is going to impact on employment, how it is going to impact on social accountability. Suggest recommendations for the stakeholders. So through that findings we can have some suggestions that will come in next. I think that will come to in next slide. So next, highlight any unexpected or contradictory results. If your results are if any results you found that is contradictory or unexpected, you are not expected that result, but that result is coming, please highlight that, because that will be the new invention, the discovery reinvention that can be done by you. So provide a possible explanations based on the context, simple limitations or biases that you have to explain. So here I have given an example. So this is all about the findings. through that analysis, you will definitely come with some findings. You have to mention that findings. So after that findings, there is another segment. How much time we have? Sir, next time. Fine. Yes, I will conclude my presentation. There are only few slides. So yes, here the policy implications and practical recommendations, that is very important, because you have carried out this entire research, but you need to give finally you need to give some recommendations to the society, because they will get benefit. So because we have benefited from some other research, so we have to contribute something to society, and this process will goes on continue. So here the segment comes, policy implications and practical recommendations. Based on the study's findings, this section outlines key policy recommendations you can recommend for policy and practical measures to improve access to skill-based education and employment opportunities for the transgender individuals. In particular, that example, these suggest how research findings can influence the policy, laws, and institutional frameworks that you have to take into consideration, because you should recommend the things which is feasible, which is possible. So don't recommend the things that which is not feasible, possible. Though idealistically, don't recommend. A recommendation should be a practical based. So that's why. So you have to consider whether my findings are influencing any policy or not. That you have to take into consideration, and they help policymaker, government bodies, and organizations make informed decisions. So always when it comes to the recommendation point of view, at that time we were thinking only towards we are giving recommendations to the government to should do such things, government should not do such things. That is what the recommendations that we are giving. But that is not the only case. Merely the government is not the only institution. Other than government, there are many. We can suggest for society. We can suggest for any community. The suggestions will be in a holistic manner rather than a specific only government should do such things. That should not be there. So then next, these focuses on realistic, actionable steps that the practitioner, businessmen, businesses, educators, and communities can implement, and they provide solutions-based research insights to improve existing practices. So with this policy implication, the entire society is going to benefit. And next, last comes, so after the recommendations, if you have any suggestions for further research, you have to mention, because this is the area where you are saying that for new researchers. So I have done research up to this level. So beyond this the point, you have to carry out that research. That is the indication that is you are giving for the next generation or the next research. So mentioning further scope of research is very important. Based on the findings, limitations of the study, future research should focus on the following areas to deepen understanding and improve the policy related transgender education and employment. That the example that I have taken here. Future research should focus on addressing existing knowledge gaps and ensuring that policy intervention lead to the meaningful change. Interdisciplinary approaches, including education, economics, sociology, and policy studies, will help create a comprehensive understanding of transgender inclusion in skill-based education and employment. That we have to. So mentioning mentioning further scope of research is another the important step of any research. And finally, the references and appendices. So here we know that there are that is very popular. So again, these slides will take another sessions. I think some other teachers will take because these are the very important sections. We have APS style, American Psychological Association style, and we have MLA style, we have a Chicago style. There are many types of styles, but which style we have to adapt. In social science, most of the people use the APS style, that is well accepted, that you can know. So with this, I stop my presentation. Thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you, Anita. If you have any addition, or if you have any, if you want to add anything, if you want to give any suggestion, or if you have any query, please, you are welcome to ask.
Thank you, sir.
No, sir, it's a excellent, sir. Actually, we understand that the revenue index is much more important, sir, rather than all those things. My point of view, it's so good, sir. Actually, you do the what way of the compounded the growth rate is going on.
Yes.
We will learn for in the future days, sir.
Yes. I thought that everybody will mention about the particular section, but it will be helpful, more helpful to that. Finally, it comes to that how I can prepare my thesis, from where I need to start, what points I have to keep in our mind. That question comes at that time. So I think this discussion may help the people.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So if anybody have, nobody is having any question, so
No, sir. Excellent presentation, sir. Thank you very much.
thank you, madam. Thank you for complimenting.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bendre, sir, for your valuable inputs and research. Thank you once again, and thank you for our participants for your patiently hearing. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ananda.